Now about how to select colors. We're going to use these swatches down here, and this one on top is the foreground color and this one is the background color. Now we can switch the foreground and background colors by clicking on the switch button right here, and it just switches them back and forth. We can return to black and white just by clicking on that. If you want to pick your foreground color, you're going to click on your foreground color. This dialog box is going to come up, and we can use this slider right here to pick a basic hue. Say here we want something that's kind of purple, and then we can select within this box to adjust how saturated we want it to be, or how desaturated, or how light or how dark. Further over to the right are the saturated colors. Further to the left are the desaturated versions of that color. So here we have very desaturated kind of purplish color. Closer to the top are the brighter colors, and closer to the bottom are the darker colors. So let's say we want a really bright and saturated purple. I'm going to click up there, and then we can click OK. Now you also see that you can also select colors by entering in information about the CMYK or the RGB numbers or the hue, saturation, brightness. If you have a color that you know you want to use, for example, you're redesigning a logo for a client and they know what the color values are, the CMYK color values, or this hex number down here, you could enter that in and it's going to select the exact same color so that you make sure that you use the proper color for a client's logo. But if you're just picking colors, you would use this tool right here. Let's go back to our really saturated and really bright purple, and now our foreground color is set at that. If we click on our background color, we could pick a different color. We might want to go with a color that is complement. Let's pick a really bright and saturated yellow, and now we have some complementary colors to work with here. I'm going to create a new layer above the background, and I'm just going to come down here to the PaintBucket tool, and I'm going to cover the entire background in yellow. I'm going to create a new layer to add a purple shape, so I'm going to switch back to the purple being the foreground color. I'm going to get my elliptical marquee tool. I'm going to hold down Shift to create a perfect circle. Now I've created a perfect circle selection. I'm going to come back to my PaintBucket tool and I'm going to fill it in with purple. Press Command D to deselect. That's how you use the PaintBucket tool, and you can switch back and forth between your foreground and background colors. Now, if you don't want to just color something a solid color, you want it to have a gradient, you're going to control click or right click on the PaintBucket tool and you'll select the gradient tool. By clicking and pulling the gradient tool, the angle of the line that you pull determines the angle of the gradient. So if I want the gradient to go at a diagonal line from corner to corner, I'm going to drag and release it like that. If I want it to be straighter across, I can pull it straight. If I want it to go up and down, I can pull it that way. And that's how you use the gradient tool for the most part, but there are some options up here with the gradient tool. For example, this is the normal gradient tool right here. But let's say that I wanted to make it to where it radiates outward. I'm going to click this, and wherever I click first is going to be kind of the center of the circle, so to speak. And in this way, I create a gradient that starts off as a circle and expands outward instead of going from one side to the other. And there are a couple of different gradient modes in here. This one is a double-sided gradient, so it's going to go from purple to yellow on both sides of where you drag your line. And this one creates a diamond. There are also some other options in here. I can choose the rainbow tool or the rainbow gradient. Let's go back to regular mode. I can choose the chrome gradient. One gradient that you'll probably end up using, this is the gradient that you'll end up using the most, just the regular gradient from one color to the next. But a lot of times I'll use this gradient, which takes my foreground color and it leaves everything else transparent. Create a new layer down here. So if I just want a gradient with purple and I want everything else to stay transparent, then I can do that. And it's basically going to create a gradient with no background color. So it's not going from purple to something, it's going from purple to less and less color until it finally gets transparent. Something else to notice about the gradient tool is that not only does the angle matter of the line that you drag, but also the length. The length is going to determine how gradually the gradient goes from one color to the other. So if I make a really short line, the gradient from the purple to the yellow it's going to change colors really quickly. Whereas if I make a longer line, it's going to change colors very slowly.